Thank you. Um, we.
It is.
Hello.
I would say that.
Hello.
No sound.
Must be no. Am I on? Am I on?
No.
Am I on?
No.
No. Am I on? Yes.
Yeah.
Close. Thank you. We have a performance by our powwow club here, and I'd like for people to listen to this, please. That's the La Mesa Elementary Powwow Club, and I think we'll hear from him again in just a little bit. I would like to turn it over to my interpreter, Sandra.
Sí, buenas tardes. Si alguien necesita interpretación al español, levante la mano y les alcanzo un receptor de interpretación. Gracias.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce the La Cueva High School Marine Corps JROTC under the instruction of First Sergeant Griego. They will give us the salute to the flag and also the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Ready, cut, forward, march.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Okay, read, color. Ready, cut. Right, turn, march. Forward, march.
May be seated. I'd like a moment of silence in honor of all IPS graduates who have lost their lives while serving our country. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Here.
Peggy Mueller Aragon,
Here.
Lorenzo Garcia,
Here.
Barbara Peterson,
Here.
Candelaria Patterson,
Here.
Elizabeth Armijo,
Here.
Dr. David Piercy.
Here. I entertain a motion for adoption of the April 4th, 2018 Board of Education meeting agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We'll go on to recognition of students, staff, and community. Board Member Yolanda Montoya.
Welcome to tonight's board meeting, and thank you for coming. We would like to recognize the color guard tonight from La Cueva High School Marine Corps JROTC under the instruction of First Sergeant Griego. Would the instructor and the students please come to the podium and introduce themselves?
Good evening, ma'am. Cadet First Lieutenant Jones. I'm part of La Cueva High School JROTC program, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cadet First Lieutenant Rehani, and I am part of the MCJRTC program at La Cueva High School.
Cadet First Lieutenant Foreign. I'm part of the La Cueva MCJRTC program.
Good evening. My name is Cadet Lance Corporal Rene, and I am part of the La Cueva ROTC.
Hello, I'm Cadet Corporal Sebastian Espinosa, and I am part of the MCJRTC program at La Cueva High School.
Good evening. I'm First Sergeant Griego, the Senior Marine Instructor at La Cueva High School. Thank you.
prior to the beginning of the board meeting, you were listening to some great performances from the La Mesa Elementary School Powwow Club, led by Shannon Johnson. The dancers and drummers are kindergarten through 5th grade students from La Mesa Elementary School and Governor Bent Elementary School. The students are learning their heritage language, Navajo, with Ms. Johnson in the only APS Navajo language program at the elementary level. The group has been invited to perform at APS schools, Festival Bellas Artes, and Congregation Albert. I kind of picked it up. So help me in thanking them for being here. And we're going to ask Ms. Johnson, would your amazing students perform one more piece for us, please?
Not a mistake. It's because this is follow the sun.
Thank you. Would you all please come to the podium and introduce yourselves?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shannon Johnson, and I am the Navajo Language and Culture teacher at La Mesa Elementary School for the past 14 years, and I present my students.
Just a minute. Just a minute. There you go. There you go.
Say Yateshe, or hello. That was Kyrie Shorty, kindergarten.
Yay.
Yatasha, my name is Kirsten Sandoval, and I'm a Navajo student at La Mesa Elementary. And I'm in 5th grade.
Yatasha, my name is Josiah Reese. I'm in 3rd grade. Yatasha, my name is Andrea. I'm in 4th grade and I'm in the Navajo language program.
Yatasha, my name is Jemiah Luis. I'm in 2nd grade.
Yatasha, Gabriel Sandoval. Dashjina, Jesha, Nishle, Nake, Basachi, Dinepasad, Bosha. I'm in 2nd grade. Hi, my name is Mylan, and I'm a Pueblo Indian, and I'm in 3rd grade. Hi, my name is Darian Archuleta, and I'm from Governor Bent, and I'm in 5th grade.
Hi, my name is Delandra Casquito.
Hi, everyone. This is Taylor Archuleta, and she's going to be 2 next month. And I'm Victoria Archuleta, and I'm the Powwow Fancy Shaw coordinator at La Mesa Elementary.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you. Our next recognition will be introduced by Dr. Madeline Cerna Mardmal, Assistant Superintendent of Equity Instruction and Support. Dr. Cerna Mardmal.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and Superintendent Reedy, esta tarde tengo el honor de reconocer 3 jóvenes brillantes del concurso de letreo. This evening, I have the honor of recognizing 3 extraordinary spellers. Albuquerque Public Schools hosted a Spanish spelling bee for students from the 4th to the 8th grade. Each school had a competition and then sent the first place winner. Those winners competed in the district Spanish spelling bee in February. Spelling all the words with the accents, I don't think I could have done that myself. Tonight we are honored to have the top 3 winners and their families with us. As I call your name, will you please come up to the podium and line up along the wall to my left? Jimena Nevarez, a 6th grade student from Hayes Middle School, won 3rd place. Megan Marquez Gonzalez, an 8th grade student from Jefferson Middle School, won 2nd place. And Miriam Arias Arcineda, a 6th grade student from Van Buren Middle School, won 1st place. Would the family members and staff supporting these students please stand so we can greet you?
Just a quick follow-up. I know that we are having the national debate tournament here in Albuquerque, I believe in 2020. And we had talked before about having an actual pilot program of a debate in Spanish. And I hope that we are pursuing that, because I think, just these young people and their Spanish spelling and so forth are an illustration of what we can do in the debate aspect as well. So I hope that we're pursuing that, but I think that's a great opportunity for us to showcase here in Albuquerque the dual language aspects. So hopefully we'll be doing that.
So our next recognition will be introduced by Dr. Antonio Gonzalez, Associate Superintendent for Zone 2. Yay.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy, good evening. Tonight, I have the honor and high privilege of recognizing an exceptional accomplishment. On March 10th, the Atrisco Heritage Academy High School boys basketball team won the New Mexico State Basketball Tournament. They finished with a record season of 22-3. The team advanced through the state playoffs with a double overtime win versus Las Cruces High School prior to the final game with Rio Rancho's Cleveland High School. They were ahead much of the final game, falling behind 1 point in the third quarter, making it very interesting. In the end, they rallied to win an exceptional championship game against Cleveland High School with a final score of 53-49. Although the game was exciting, even more significant is the fact that this win is the first team state championship in the school's young history. As I call your name, students, players, and coaches, would you please join me behind the podium? Head coach Adrian Ortega, assistant coach Daniel Leyba, players Angel Ramirez, Enrique Bibian, Jason Weisenberger, Dominic Rivas, Josiah Ramos, DeMarcus Stupin, Marquise Crawford, DJ Ornelas, Diego Ortega, Jordan Arroyo, Malachi Crawford, Carlos Salazar, Zach Carmogni, Elijah Gaxiola, and managers Sabrina Trujillo, Jennifer Hernandez, and Xavier Jimenez. And we all know that success does not come without the leadership of a very strong leader and their principal, Irene Cisneros. With the family members and friends supporting this team, please stand so that we may greet you. Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy, this win was very exciting to see. Not only was it good for the school's spirit, but also good for the community at large. So please help me congratulate the 2018 state winning basketball team from Atrisco Heritage Academy High School.
All right, so we're 1 minute. Oh, the principal.
You were attacked by your dog? My dog. Well, my daughter's dog that lives with me.
Did you? Wait. There's the other basketball player.
I don't know. I really don't know what happened. She just has never done that.
Hey, our,
She's off
I
the.
don't know if we could get going. Yeah, that's you.
There's that.
So our next recognition will be introduced by Richard Bowman, Chief Information and Strategy Officer. Dr. Bowman. Chief Information.
Fantastic. Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy and Cabinet. Tonight, I have the honor of recognizing an outstanding staff member. Jason Johnson has been awarded national certification as an education technology leader. This certification is overseen by the Consortium for School Networking. The requirements for the certification are quite rigorous, and very few people nationally have earned this recognition. Mr. Jeff Lunsford, who supervised Mr. Johnson's cohort and is a recipient of the award himself, is here to share a little bit about the certification process. Mr. Lunsford and Mr. Johnson, will you please join me at the podium?
Thank you for inviting me tonight. As said, I'm Jeff Lunsford. I've been around APS and working with the team off and on for a few years. And I have the honor of congratulating and recognizing Jason for his achievement as well. So the Consortium of School Networking, COSN for short, created the Certified Education Technology Leader Program specifically to recognize the need for leaders who can bridge education and technology. That as we work towards transforming into a 21st century learning environment, we leverage technology to enable new paradigms in teaching and learning. Technology itself doesn't create the transformation, but it enables it as we change how we teach and how we learn. The certification program, the cohort that we did, involved 9 New Mexicans, 7 of which received their certification. It was a 6-month program, lots and lots of hours, lots of discussion. The certification involved 2 testing phases and continuing education and experience. It really focuses on 3 categories: leadership and vision. So how do you plan and design a cohesive program, not just putting technology in the classroom? Education focus, instructional focus. What do we need to do for team development, professional development of our entire teaching cohort and all the staff that supports them, as well as the students and the administration. Finally, it also looks at the technology that's involved. Comes together to create a leader who's identified as someone who can bridge those gaps and create that unified solution. So I want to say congratulations to Jason. There are, to clarify, there are 396 people worldwide with this certification. Okay. It's a very difficult certification to achieve, and there's only 8 people in New Mexico that have it. So congratulations, Jason.
Thanks, sir. Would the family members supporting Mr. Johnson please stand so that we may greet you? Mr. Johnson, thank you for all of the ways that you support students through technology. Let's show our appreciation for Mr. Johnson.
So the conflict was really dog to dog, and then you intervened? No. The little one just went to protect me. Oh, I don't know what happened.
Right, thank you. Our next recognition will be introduced by Dr. Antonio Gonzalez.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy, today I have the honor of recognizing an exemplary teacher. Mike Denman, a teacher at West Mesa High School, was invited by the U.S. Secretary of Education and South Korean Consul General Kim to visit South Korea as part of a group that will study and learn about the South Korean economy and history. The group also will share New Mexico curriculum revisions in social studies. Mr. Denman is one of only 2 teachers from the entire state of New Mexico given this honor. Mr. Denman, would you please join me at the podium? Would the family and friends of Mr. Denman please stand so that we may also greet you? Mr. Denman, we wish you the best as you participate in this unique opportunity and look forward to hearing about your experiences. You are indeed an example for all of us, and we are proud to call you part of the APS family. Let us show our appreciation and congratulate Mr. Denman.
It's amazing.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that amazing? I know.
How these things happen, yeah.
Okay, so the final recognition is a celebration of several board members' birthdays. So Barbara Peterson's birthday was March 28th, and Peggy Mueller-Aragon's birthday is tomorrow, April 5th. So will you join me in singing happy birthday to our 2 wonderful birthday people here? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Barbara and Peggy. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Okay. So that concludes our recognitions for tonight. Congratulations again to everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. We're now going to begin public forum. Everybody gets to eat cake. I guess. Okay, So, all right, so before we begin, whether you are here with a request for the Board of Education to consider, provide information, or just see how the Board of Education operates, we want to know that you are welcome. The Board of Education has established rules for expected civil behavior during the meeting and public forum. Upon signing in to speak tonight, you received a signature form and copy of the procedural directive which outlines those rules for expected behavior. The presiding officer will enforce these rules as appropriate through the meeting. Tonight, there are 15 speakers. Therefore, to accommodate the greatest number of speakers, each speaker has 2 minutes for comments within the 30-minute public forum. The time remaining to speak will appear on the screen in front of you. You may not yield your unused time to another speaker. You're always welcome to submit additional comments to the board in writing. If you are unable to convey your message or you're not able to speak within the 30-minute public forum time, the Board of Education encourages you to stay for the entirety of the meeting so you may listen to board members' comments before we adjourn. Only at this time may your concerns be addressed at the discretion of each board member. So the speakers are, I'm going to call up the first 3, and if you could just line up there, it'd be great. Michael Anderson, Daniel Gurule, and Filiberto Martinez.
President Piercy, board members, and Superintendent Reedy. My name is Michael Anderson. I visited you all a couple weeks ago. Welcome, or glad to be back. Kind of, sort of. And I also brought some friends with me. At the last board meeting that I attended, I didn't know a whole lot about what was going on with physical education. I don't know that you all knew a whole lot about what was going on with physical education. I'm glad we all know what's going on now, so that hopefully we can save it. I don't have a whole lot to say, but I do want to read a letter that a student gave to me probably 12 years ago. A student who was in my class that had a difficult time everywhere else other than PE. He couldn't sit still. He could not sit still, and oftentimes in class he would get in trouble because he would be up wandering around messing with other kids. And so when he gave me this letter, I put it on my wall, and it sits up there along with all 4 walls in my office are filled with pictures and letters and things from my students. And this one is like the one that brings me chills every time, so I'm going to read it really quickly for you. It says, I live for gym. I breathe for gym. I watch the clock and race to gym. I'm free in gym to run and play and try new games and shout, hooray. It's in the gym I feel so good. I'd live there if only I could. If only I could have gym the whole day through. Why then I always dash to school. And this is indicative of a lot of my students, the students who have a difficult time in class. They need to move. They have to move. So I've heard that you are in support of physical education. I'm so glad to hear that, and I hope that you're able to help us out and save PE. Not for us. We're going to have a job. We're worried about our kids. So thank you again, and fight for us and help us out, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Goulet. I'm a physical education teacher, half-time at Eugene Field Elementary and half-time at Rodolfo Nye Elementary. Eugene Field is on an alternatives calendar, so yesterday I was able to attend the meeting, the board meeting yesterday morning. It was a challenging exercise in biting my tongue, but I want to thank the board, especially Dr. Piercy, for questioning and stating many of the things I was thinking. I was disappointed to hear our CFO make misleading statements regarding ESSA supplement, not supplant, as well as comparing the $2.8 million supplement to the $8.3 million overall cost of the elementary PE program. Thank you, Dr. Piercy, for questioning this, and I fully agree that this was a weak argument. I was extremely disappointed to hear our superintendent mention the idea of using the supplement on reading teachers. Believe me, I know the importance of our reading teachers, and I also know that many of our physical educators are asked to help support reading in their schools. Again, thank you to the board for pointing out that this was not a PE versus reading argument. It is not the question here. If we are going to champion whole child, then PE is included. Physical education, physical activity is part of the whole child. Thank you for steering the discussion towards adjusting the allocations of physical education rather than eliminating them. However, I was displeased when I heard our CFO say multiple times that every school should benefit from this funding. No, this funding was meant for the most at-risk students. Equity does not mean equal. This was repeated multiple times. Finally, thank you for asking that physical educators be included in the discussion to determine where these allocations are most needed. Thank you, Board.
I have some handouts I would like to give to the board and superintendents.
You can go ahead. Get started. Go ahead and get started.
Okay. So hi, President, board members, and superintendent. My name is Filiberto Martinez. I'm an elementary PE teacher at Mission Avenue Elementary and father and parent of 2 current APS students. So I'm gonna bring the data perspective from this PE argument. These sheets that you are being presented with now are from the Department of Health and a collaboration with APS Healthy Weight Assessment Project that was completed from the years 2009 to 2013. This is very valuable data. And on the first sheet that's in front of you, this shows a correlation between poverty or lack of poverty and a healthy weight. As we can see on this sheet, higher income students are much less likely to be overweight or obese than lower income students. As we turn to the next page, this is about achievement. Again, this data is from APS, from our students. This is not state data. This is not national data. This is APS data. This shows a correlation between achievement and a healthy body weight. Students who have a healthy body weight perform better on standardized tests than students who are overweight or obese. Matter of fact, in APS, it's 7 to 10% better. If you'll turn the page, the last one, or second to last one, is attendance. Attendance is a big, important matter for our district. Elementary school students who are obese have 17% more total absence than students who are of a healthy weight. And the last page, this is a map of our district's elementary schools. This map shows the proportion of students who are overweight and obese at these elementary schools. I believe if there's going to be any change in allocation of resources, it should be using data such as this map to best find the schools that can use the additional human resources. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. The next 3 speakers, Matthew Maestas, Joe Buck, and Jeremy Dunham.
Hi, good evening. I'm not here as a coach, I'm here as a parent. I'm representing Coach Buck here behind me. My son and daughter have been taught very well by him. He runs one of the best run PE gyms I've seen as a coach myself and growing up. I mean, he's here for all the right reasons. He's here for the kids. He has a very clean gym. He is involved with the community. He's involved with the kids. I think it would be detrimental to have coaches split from one gym to another. Not only would it affect his time, but it would also affect the kids' time. I can't believe that we're here just discussing cutting PE half or cutting, half their time as it is. For the last couple years, we've had to decide between music and art in our schools. And I feel like there should be allocated money to have art, music, and PE full-time in our schools. And I'm having a hard time believing that, this has to happen. I mean, kids need physical fitness. They need time to vent outside of the classroom. I think a full-time coach versus a coach that's going to be back and forth is going to be detrimental to the kids and to everything else. I mean, Coach Buck is one of the best coaches. I've been coached all my life. I played college football, and I have a lot of respect for Coach Buck. And physical fitness, basic academics, Those things are all learned in the first 5 years of children's life, and I think that if you start taking it away at a young age, you know, we're going to lose, the kids are going to lose out, basically, and I don't think it's fair that this is happening. And I just want to, as a parent, voice my opinion. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joe Buck. I teach at Alvarado Elementary. I've been teaching there for 10 years. I have 2 of my own sons who attend school there. My colleagues have, and I think will continue to speak to the undeniable facts about the positive benefits of exercise and physical education, and how these benefits translate into improved academic gains. Also, how our physical education teachers are the heart and soul of our communities. I would like to speak a little bit more specifically about how it would affect someone like me who's being full-time at one school and then divided as a 0.5 between 2 schools. And I have some firsthand experience with this. My wife is also a PE teacher with APS, and she does currently work at 2 schools as a 0.5 at each. So kind of can compare our 2 days today. She had to transport equipment across town from the North Valley all the way downtown, 2 trips, to get ready for her second half of her week's lessons, okay? Comparing my free time today in between my physical education classes, I ran an intramural league at recess where 40 students participated in the flag football and soccer leagues. Students who wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise outside of school due to lower socioeconomic status. Additionally, during our afternoon exercise break today, my students ran 22 miles, including one obese 3rd grade boy who's lost over 20 pounds this year alone. After school today, I played basketball with 4 students, 2 whose fathers died last year and 2 whose fathers are in jail right now. We shot baskets, we talked, and we had a really positive experience. So I ask you, do you want me to spend my time hustling across town, grabbing equipment, not knowing my students' names, not getting to know my communities? Or do you want me rocking intramural league where 40 kids are participating, or having kids run 20 miles a day and cutting down these obesity rates? I think that's what this choice kind of boils down to. So please support us. Please help us empower our children to lead healthy lifestyles. And I really appreciate all your support.
President Piercy, board members, and Superintendent Reedy. My name is Jeremy Denham. I teach physical education at Zia Elementary, and I've been there 14 years. I'm also a parent of a kindergartner who attends Zia as well. And I'm also the president of the Society of Health and Physical Education, Educators here in New Mexico. There are many benefits students receive in physical education. Classes that contribute to students becoming responsible adults who are aware of the importance of healthy lifestyles. The inclusion of regular fitness activity helps students maintain fitness, develop muscular strength, and improve cardiovascular health. The participation in physical education provides a positive influence on students' personalities, character, and self-esteem. Physical education is essential to the development of motor skills, and students, especially in high needs areas, who have substantial amounts of stress due to curriculum, homework, family life, and peer pressures, physical education offers a method of stress relief for that. As well as many physical educators are doing things outside of their time, such as Joe Buck does, doing intramural activities during recess or sports before or after school. Thank you again for letting me speak.
The next 3 speakers, if you would come up, please. Suzanne Scatliff, Brian Funk, and Virginia Koenig. Okay.
Good evening, Superintendent Reedy, President Piercy, Board of Education members. First of all, I want to thank you for your support of our PE programs here at APS. And my name is Suzanne Scatliff, and I am what they call a PE teacher at Pajadito Elementary School. But every day I go to work, I think of myself as someone else. Sometimes I'm the nurse, sometimes I'm mom, even dad, and oftentimes I'm the counselor and social worker, math and language arts teacher. My coworker and I were the ones who taught a third grade student how to spell his last name through one simple game of tag. I'm that person. I'm that grown-up version of a student who once needed PE, had ADD, and just can't imagine how my life would have been without PE. It's just turned me into a successful person. We have students who, at our school, we have a problem with attendance. So we have those students who come to school simply because they know that it is PE day. So if we can support our school in that, then I feel we have done our job. So just want to ask you to continue to support us, and let's keep our PE program strong and going. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening, Dr. Piercy, members of the board, and Superintendent Reedy. My name is Brian Funk. I'm a physical education teacher at Cochiti Elementary School. I've worked in APS ever since I was an undergraduate in the Title I homeless projects and have been working within Title I schools for a pretty long time. And I just wanted to say thank you all again for your support of physical education. Being that I am at Cochiti, we're on an alternative schedule, so I'm still on my spring break, and I was able to make the meeting yesterday. So it was great to hear how supportive you all were of physical education. I also want to provide a little bit of background into the way that schools were able to get extra funding for our physical education programs. I know that was a concern yesterday, that there was no idea of how schools received this, and it just seemed like it was randomly kind of selected. When this money did become available, schools went through an application process to determine schools who would benefit mostly from additional physical education. Most of those schools were Title I schools. As far as I know, all of those schools are Title I schools, and I don't believe their status has changed, nor has our funding for this program changed either. I also want to reiterate what was talked about yesterday in terms of supplant and not supplement. The current funding formula for APS is what is supplanting our schools, whether it's 300 and below gets a halftime teacher, population 300 to 500 or 600 gets 1.5, and so on and so forth. That's what's funded through APS. The state has additional money, which we're trying to give back for some reason, for those extra physical education positions that are being talked about being eliminated right now. So I just wanted to provide that information, that it was an application process done back in 2008 to select those schools that were at the highest need. So thank you all very much.
Good evening, President Piercy, board members, and Superintendent Reedy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on the importance of additional physical education in Title I schools. My name is Ginger Koning, and I have the honor of working with an incredible group of students and outstanding staff at Barcelona Elementary School, and I am a proud ATF member. Barcelona students are in line with the 25 to 30% of New Mexico's children that are overweight, obese, and quite frankly, struggling to stay fit. Very few of our students have the financial resources or transportation to attend classes or sports camps to get the much-needed exercise, learn about health and fitness, or master basic movement skills. Unfortunately, Barcelona Elementary School in the South Valley will be facing a reduction in PE classes in the next year due to the rift of staff, and our students' present and future will be compromised. I urge you to keep the current number of PE teachers to help improve students' health, and wellness, as well as assist in their academic performance. Thanks so much.
The next three, Monica, got Monica. Chase Clark and Margaret Hornbeck. Go ahead.
Good evening, President Percy, board members, Superintendent Reedy. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. My name is Monica Klostava, and I'm a PE teacher at Barcelona Elementary School. I love my job. I love my students. I have been at Barcelona for 6 years, and I want to stay. When I teach physical education, I incorporate English language arts and math into as many lessons as I can. One example of a lesson with my K through 2 students is I read them a book called We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And they acted out the book, and they learned movement concepts, space awareness, as well as kindergarten concepts of over, under, and through. They loved it. In PE, students learn skills and concepts, as you know, kinesthetically. What a fun and healthy way to learn. Please find a way to save our jobs. Thank you for your time.
Do we have Chase Clark? Okay, we'll move on then to Margaret.
President Piercy, Superintendent Reedy, and all board members, thank you for your support for physical education. My name is Margaret Hornbeck. I teach at Cleveland Middle School. I would just like to share some positive moments about physical education. I had a student who I taught over 9 years ago. I ran into her buying running shoes. She had said to me the reason she's still running is because of PE. Another student I had taught, I ran into lifting weights, and she said, "Look at me, I still work out because of you teaching us about the health-related fitness components." I also have another student that I saw his whole family at the gym. They all said thank you to me for getting their whole family working out. I have invited parents to school for National Bring Your Parents to PE Day. I then had parents telling me their kids wanted to buy bow and arrows. The parents also wanted to come back to PE. I have had students talk about nutrition with me on a daily basis. I have had students who want to improve their nutrition and get so excited to tell me each day when they have improved their nutrition. I have another student who wants to beat me at a plank every day in my class. She often goes home to her parents and she works out with them. And again, she is the first in her family to work out and have her parents work out on their own. I collaborated with a classroom teacher for the Olympics. And for the first day, she had told me everybody was here because they were so excited to get out and be moving. PE is not only life-changing, but it is also a place where students can be kids. Thank you for letting me share some wonderful moments with the board, and please come out and join me in my PE class or any of these other PE teachers. Thank you. Thanks again for your support.
And our last three speakers, Janet Sayers, Tracy Villarreal, and Joelle Villarreal.
Good evening, I'm Janet Sayers. I actually live in Elizabeth's district, but I'm always here talking about Del Norte and Hodgen, Bel Air, McKinley area. But tonight I'm sorry?
I said I don't hold it against you.
Okay. Really, I just came to learn, but to say thank you, because just seems like, I mean, there's so many challenges and so much happening. So I just wanted to thank each of the board members for all the time and energy that you put into serving, because I know it's every day and it's probably hours every day, and you've given up family time and you've given up probably being able to go to the gym and do some of the healthy things you'd like to do. And probably you've had to grab some quick meals on the go. But I just, on behalf of what I think are probably thousands of people who you never hear from a lot of those folks. You hear from people that are complaining or have an issue or problem, but I mean, there's thousands of us that just appreciate your service. And I also wanted to just say, I don't know the names of all the administrative higher-ups. That's not a very good word for an English major, but the people that serve in administration. There's some new faces this year who I have not had the opportunity to meet, but the same thing. You know, you're appreciated. You're appreciated for your patience and your ability to hear a lot of different comments, many of which are not complimentary, because people don't know the whole story. And I just wanted to say thank you tonight. So.
Hi, good evening. So first of all, I just kind of wanted to say, I didn't come here for the PE thing, but actually my son's older PE teacher is here tonight, and unfortunately he's in 7th grade and he hasn't had PE yet in middle school, so he's so devastated. He still talks about the family fitness nights and things like that at Inez School. So I just wanted to say, I mean, even Coach Ederson has definitely had an impression on my son still too. But on a more serious note, my son does go to Cleveland Middle School, and as you guys know, about 2 weeks ago there was a very tragic accident in front of the school. They were having a carnival, so all the kids were in there raising money for a charity and things like that. And so this situation happened, and my understanding is that they are going to be building a light, a safety crosswalk light there. And I know that they want to have it installed before fall. But my question and my hope is that you can help out the city, because I know that Mayor Keller was asking for some funds be appropriated from APS for that. So that's why I'm here. If you've ever gone down that road, even when the lights are on, it is people unfortunately don't pay attention. And then also things do happen after school, and it is just a crosswalk. There's nothing to stop traffic there for those kids. So thank you for your time, and I hope you'll consider that.
Were you going to speak to? Go ahead.
Sorry. Members of the board, my name is Joel Villarreal. I'm also a parent of a child that goes to Cleveland Middle School. And just to let you know, I know Ms. Armijo, I think I'm in her district, but our school is actually under Mr. Garcia's district. I basically wanted to ditto off of what my wife was saying there. You know, that accident that happened there, it was completely preventable. And I think that, you know, we're at a day and age now where it seems like our kids' safety seems to come secondhand to a bunch of political interests there. And I mean, this isn't dealing with guns. This is something, you know, a lot more simple than that, is being able to cross the walk to get to school. And, you know, I think people need to take into consideration, this is in a very unique area. That for a middle school, and you're talking, there's kids there as young as 11 years old, right, that are having to cross across one of the busiest intersections, not just in the city, in the state of New Mexico. And it is dangerous. Me and my wife, we don't even, my kid is asked to be able to ride to school. We get worried about that. He's tried it a couple of times, and it's just very, I mean, you think about it all day. Is he going to be okay when he comes back? It is a dangerous crosswalk, much less when people are doing events. I know that at the very least, I think that there should be something out there when there are extracurricular activities, when you've got a whole group of parents there should be somebody there. But, you know, what I would ask for is not just that light. There was a gentleman that I was talking to out there that was talking about, you know, what the area really needs is like some kind of a catwalk that goes over it, or some kind of overwalk. And I know that's a lot of money when people are looking at money, but that child's life is worth more than that. And I think that, you know, when you look at it in the context of our children, you know, we owe it to them to keep them safe. And I think that, you know, APS, I'm sure would be up to the task. I'm not sure how the funding goes for this, or how, you know, APS the city of Albuquerque, from what I heard on the news was that they were hoping to get some kind of funding here from APS to help them assist with that. I don't know the interworkings of what that would entail. But I would hope that if that is able to do that, that you please a lot what you can to be able to do a project there, because those kids do deserve more than that, and it is in a very dangerous place. Thank you very much.
That concludes public forum.
Thank you. We'll go on to the superintendent's report.
Hi, I'm sorry. Board President Dr. Piercy, board members, community members, and staff. Over the past 2 years, APS has been partnered with Network to Transform Teaching. This is a grant, and it's working to bring the accomplished teaching body of knowledge to pilot schools. The pilot schools in APS that are with this grant are Aztec Homebound, Cleveland Middle School, El Dorado High School, Manzano High School, Atrisco Heritage High School, Volcano Vista High School, E.G. Ross Elementary School, Mission Avenue Elementary School, Next Gen Academy High School, and Zuni Elementary. Quite a few schools. This grant involves 8 other states and 2 districts that also are using the accomplished teaching body of knowledge, grounded in the underlying principles of national boards to positively impact student outcomes. The body of knowledge includes the 5 core propositions, the architecture of accomplished teaching, and the National Board Teacher Standards. Across the country, teachers are experiencing the same positive results as the APS pilot schools. By using the body of knowledge, the school-based problems of practice have pinpointed student needs, which have led to greater student success. School-based activities have included data analysis, classroom observations, new teacher support, and Ed Rising, just to name a few. Recently, the Network to Transform Teaching teams met for their final learning session to plan ways to sustain this important work. That's the issue. We have some wonderful opportunities. We have to figure out, though, how to sustain it and keep it going, especially for programs like this that seem to be very positive. With support of the Associate Superintendent, Dr. Gabriela Blakey, and 3 nationally board certified teachers, the team identified ways to spread the body of knowledge to more teachers in APS. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. This work has shown us that when teachers are able to identify their students' needs through a common language, it is the most powerful form of collaboration and has the biggest impact on student outcomes. And I'm so glad we had the dancing today, because on April the 3rd, 2018, just this week, a tribal summit meeting was conducted with approximately 42 individuals in attendance. All tribal leaders in New Mexico were invited, including governors, lieutenant governors, tribal council delegates, and Navajo Nation President's Office, state leaders and local leaders of organizations that work with Native American youth. The purpose of the meeting, and it was here, was to share information about federally funded programs such as Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, that's enough titles, as well as promising performance outcomes of the students in APS. After a 5-minute presentation from each of the senior and executive directors of the programs, summit participants had an opportunity to discuss cultural relevancy, cultural sensitivity, and funding. And this was the wonderful part about this. The various program leaders responded to questions on specific topics, including English language learners, bullying prevention, student-led conferences, and concerns about cultural insensitivity by using the terms at risk and poverty versus, using at-risk and poverty to describe student groups versus terms such as at promise and culturally rich. I thought that was a very interesting point that they brought up. In addition, the Navajo Nation president, who came all the way from Window Rock, shared information about initiatives that were taking place on the Navajo Nation, such as STEM and environmental projects, and stressed the role that youth have after they return to the nation upon graduation from college. He expressed the hope that the Navajo Nation and APS form a strong collaborative relationship. And quite frankly, his hope is my hope, and we're certainly going to move in that direction. The president also shared that a Bitcoin, this is a new one for me, that a Bitcoin was being developed which will depict the Navajo Nation. So I thought that was very, very interesting. It's a wonderful summit. On March the 1st, we began use of an online registration module for existing and new APS parents and guardians to review and update student information. This, as you know, we've been working on for quite a while, and we're really gearing up for registration for next year. The online registration module is a self-guided process which provides APS with the ability to control and manage registration within Synergy. The module replaces the paper-based registration cards that we've used for centuries and reduces processing times, eliminates paper forms, and helps to ensure data accuracy. The Student Information Systems Department is working to train school staff regarding the use of the online registration system, as well as how to promote online registration during pre-registration and other parent-involved events. The Student Information Systems Department is working closely with APS Communications to promote and make online registration module visible on the APS website and in the Albuquerque community. The emphasis over the next few months will be to increase the number of parents that have parent view accounts so that they can use online registration. And currently, the district has 35,000 parent view accounts. And since the release of the online registration module, we have seen an increase of close to 5,000 additional parent view users, and that has been in just 1 month. In addition, as of March the 30th, this makes me happy, as of March the 30th, more than 7,000 online registrations have been submitted by parents and guardians, and I think this bodes very well for the future, making life easier for our families. I'm excited to see how this new endeavor continues to make a difference in meeting and the growing needs of our students and families. And this concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. We'll go on to our special issues. We have a briefing regarding the Council of Great City Schools 2018 Annual Legislative and Policy Conference. That's by our own Board Secretary, Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
I get to talk again. Okay. President Piercy and members of the board, thank you so much for the opportunity to attend the conference in D.C. It was a great opportunity for me as a new member coming up, and some of the major takeaways that I got from that were not only beneficial, I think, it broadened my knowledge and understanding of school districts as a whole, but it was really a pleasure to be able to meet with other school districts that have similar size, similar issues. So I really found that very beneficial. The major takeaways of the conference, everyone was really focused on the budget at that time because it hadn't been passed. So the omnibus budget was still under consideration, and so there was a lot of concern about what was going to happen. But since then, some things have happened. We have a budget, so that's good. The surprises, or I would say the things that I took away from the conference that were, I was very touched by some of the conversations, and this was one around DACA, and it was opening up with some concerns from a student who actually was a DACA student with one of the school districts, and was talking about his experience as a young man, and realizing that he wasn't undocumented until, he didn't know that he was undocumented until about middle school. And he realized that he was undocumented because at that time he wanted to play sports and could not play sports because the school district that he was in couldn't cover him with coverage for the health care, so he was excluded from that. But my takeaways from that, it was a great conversation. Some really excellent points were made by the young student, and one was how grateful he was that his school district actually had a prominent place on their website around immigration and DACA information. I went back and looked at ours, and we do have some information up there as well. What they had listed for him was not only numbers to places to get more information, but also to organizations that supported immigrant families and immigrant students. So I thought that was really helpful. It was good information. They also talked about the importance of ensuring that students and staff are aware of the circumstances from where our immigrants are coming from, and really getting a really good grounding in understanding the political strife or the nature of the countries where students are immigrating from and what that means for them just personally, and what they bring as a result of just that trauma from the countries that they're, their countries of origin, but also just creating a richer understanding for students and staff about what that means, and having a little bit broader discussion and understanding about some of the different countries that we're hosting for students that are coming from different countries. So all in all, I was really impressed with that particular presentation. I was also real impressed with the presentations around males of color work, and wondered, about our own mentorship program, because I know that there was some work that was going on, and I'm new to the board, so I haven't, and maybe it just hasn't come across me. It's not visible to me at this point, but really was really impressed with the work that was going on in Florida around the Brothers Keeper project, and expanding that, and having real visible programs around mentorship for young males of color in schools, and the difference that that was making. It was a wonderful presentation. And so for me, it was just, what is APS's role with regard to males of color, and what kind of work are we doing to support that more broadly? Because I think there's definitely an opportunity, and I know there was some work that was coming out through the Department of Health at that time around males of color. And when I was just at School Health, I know we had a small project that was focused on actually engaging young men of color in the city, and it was a partnership. So I just wasn't sure where we were with that. Let's see. The presentation from the Department of Education was entirely focused on ESSA. They talked about the ESSA plans. And so much of the focus was on the process that they were using to review, and the fact that there were still some plans that hadn't been completed. But I didn't really come away with anything big from that presentation. There was a lot of conversation around safety as a result of just the issues that had happened in Florida with Parkland. There was a lot of agreement on the need to use restorative practices as part of the resolution too. So a lot of the school districts were talking about that the resolution that the schools were being asked to adopt, that they also adopt a restorative practices piece to that, and just have consideration for that. And there was also a lot of support, a large amount of support for improved safety that didn't include arming teachers. So those were my major takeaways from the conference. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board or the administration or the audience? Or
Don't get me hard ones.
I've been to this conference several times. It is really a good conference, and I think part of the deal is the legislative interface is obviously extremely good with the Council of Great City Schools, but also the equity aspect is always discussed in great detail at these conferences, because that's a large part of the urban district issue, is equity and what we're doing about that. So, and a lot of times we, like the males of color, for example, we talk about that, but it's really a lot about Hispanic. It's a lot about African American. It's about a lot of these different areas. And so it's not like you've only focused on males of color. There's a lot of focus on all these areas. So.
And a tremendous focus on English language learners.
And ELL.
And it was hard to pick like a session to go to. So I was like going halftime to one and then running to another one, so I could just sort of soak it all in. But there was a lot, I agree with you, there was a lot of focus on equity and a lot of focus, too, on school performance. People were talking about, performance and ways that they could look at that more broadly and look at it more equitably as well, too, and using things that were making more sense to districts. But there was a lot of good banter and a lot of good discussion, so it was very helpful.
And one of the things that Yolanda may not be aware of, but they've developed, of course, the KPIs, the key performance indicators, and those are the original ones they did were in the maintenance operations area on facilities, things like that. But they've also now got the academic ones, and we are a strong participant in those things. We have a lot with the special education issues. We have a lot with the Hispanic, African American, other kinds of things in terms of the equity issues. And just for the audience's sake, it was our district that actually mentioned when they were doing African American studies and research and so forth that we suggested, you really also need to do the Hispanic ones because, in fact, there are some similarities in those, but there are some differences. And so they actually took that on as a special task to look at the Hispanic area and to find out just exactly what the data was telling them about that area. So it's a great organization. And I think, again, these conferences are important. And I think it was important to get a new board member there, even though I would have liked to have gone, but I had other duties. And I think it's great. So maybe in the future we can have other board members go to some of those things, because I think it's an important organization and it's important to get everybody kind of familiar with how they work. So other comments from anybody, board members? Okay.
Did you bring us back material?
I have a ton of material.
Yes. There's a ton of material you get.
There's a drive that's got all kinds of stuff.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I was on overload at one of the sessions. I couldn't even, I was like, I can't even hear anything anymore. It was, it was intense.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm so pleased that board member Montoya Cordova was able to go because there's nothing like it, and it's in a unique experience. We have very few opportunities to mix with districts that are as large as we are, and the problems are very unique, and so it's wonderful. And thank you for the. It's not a flash drive. What is it? You said.
The flash drive.
As flash drive. Okay, so thank you for that because it's going to be very useful. So I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that back.
Great. Okay, we'll go on to the next one, which is the discussion of revisions of the Child Fine Procedural Directive. That's a discussion item. Lucinda is going to, from our Associate Superintendent of Special Education, and City Suhu as well.
Good evening, Board President Piercy, members of the board, and Superintendent Reedy. What you have before you are proposed changes to a procedural directive as a result of a PED complaint. The PED complaint centered around parents requesting, a set of parents requesting that an IEP for a student be held at a school, at the school site. And the IEP was never held at the school. And as a result, the parents did file a state complaint against the district for not doing that. As part of our defense, we looked through New Mexico Administrative Code, IDEA, and really there is nothing in those two documents that reference that if a parent requests an IEP that one must be held. Although it is our duty to follow through when a parent does request that, there's nothing in the laws that state that that an IEP needs to be held. Upon investigation, after we presented our information and responded to the complaint, the investigator, who is an attorney for the complaint, understood what we were saying. But as a result, the PED has still required APS to review our procedural directives, to ensure that they comport with IDEA and with New Mexico Administrative Code as to when an IEP needs to be held and when revisions of an IEP need to take place or need to occur at the school level. The information in the red, which is on the procedural directive in front of you, are the changes that we've proposed to make as a result of the settlement from the due process. I'm going to have our amazing Executive Director for Compliance, Cindy Suhu, walk through those changes with you.
Thank you, Board President Piercy, members of the board, and Superintendent Reedy. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you this evening. In front of you, as Associate Superintendent Sanchez mentioned, are the proposed changes. Those changes are in red and indicated as track changes. In addition to the two specific areas that we were asked to take a look at and determine whether or not our current procedural directives included those, I also made a couple of other changes to the procedural directives. Starting at the top of the page, our old, or our current, I should say, procedural directives talk about having to provide a free, appropriate public education to students with disabilities who reside within the Albuquerque Public Schools boundaries, and that is actually not correct. It is not only that a child has to have a disability, but also has to have a need for special education. So I revised that to say must be made available to children with ineligibility as defined under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. In addition to that, I also made another reference into the second line or the second paragraph, indicating that that is something that's required in IDEA. Further down on your page is the first section of the two areas that we were supposed to take a look at and determine whether or not this information was included in our current procedural directives, and that had to do when IEPs had to be reviewed and revised. And what we added in that section was that anytime there is a lack of progress toward the annual goals of a student, anytime that the results of a reevaluation are made available to us, anytime information about the child is provided to or by the parents, as well as the child's anticipated needs and other matters, those are instances in which revisions and review of IEPs must occur. Further down on the same page, we also talked about, or we indicated when an IEP must also be conducted, and that is within 30 calendar days of determining that the child is actually eligible for special education. We must develop an IEP. And on the last page is the other area, the second area that we were asked or required to take a look at, and that had to do with when IEPs have to be in effect. And the two examples that are indicated on your sheet were have to do with children who transfer from either in-state or out of state. And so there's a clarification in that those two paragraphs as to what to do in each of those situations. So I thank you for your time and for consideration. And if you have any questions.
We stand for questions and discussion that you might have.
Any comments from board members? Board Member Muller-Aragon.
I don't know if it's just easier for me just to give you the corrections than just to try to go through it. I think it's probably easier that way, don't you?
Okay.
Or they just.
And then, well, I mean, the one thing that Ms. Sanchez is, when I was looking at the other two pages that aren't, that we're leaving how they are, there was a lot of bullets, and they weren't numbered. But then on some of it there are numbers, and then on some of them there aren't numbers. So I was kind of confused. So let's just go like to the first paragraph that is in red, and it for any student eligible, et cetera, et cetera. And then it has to address, and then there was colons everywhere else, but there wasn't there. And then there aren't like bullets there. So I don't know if you wanted to change those to bullets or if you just wanted to change them to numbers, because there's not like a consistency there. So I was just kind of confused about that.
Yes. Member Mueller-Aragon, the way in which it's actually indicated here is the way it's actually written in IDEA, but I'll be happy to change that to bullets, and so that there's consistency throughout.
Or if on what you're not changing, if you want to do it to make it consistent, as long as it's consistent with numbers or bullets, whatever, with the colons and things.
Absolutely.
And then I did have a question on that, also on that first paragraph, and you had what would be the 3 bullets or numbers. And it says the results of any reevaluation, we don't really need the word conducted, because a reevaluation obviously had been conducted. And then the one I was confused, I'm not sure what it meant, is the child's anticipated needs. So aren't the anticipated needs addressed in the goals in the IEP?
Board Member Mueller-Aragon, the anticipated needs can be addressed in the goal, but that's as a result of talking about what the strengths of the child are, what the specific services are that the child might require. So it's actually it encompasses many aspects of the IEP that then are culminated in a goal, as well as delineated by specific services that the child might receive.
Okay, I was kind of confused about that one. Okay. And then on the first bullet on that one, you have any lack of expected progress. I just think lack of progress would probably work a little better than adding any.
Okay.
Let me think. And then one thing that I think is just easier, that I think more people kind of understand, when you were talking about how often you have to review, and you said periodically, but not less than annually, I think the best way to say it that I think most of us do is at a minimum annually. I think that just makes it kind of open to however many meetings you would have, instead of saying periodically, but at, but not less than annually. And then the very bottom one on that first page in red, where it starts with a meeting, I know you talked about qualifying and having eligibility. So, and I'll give this all to Brenda, it's not changing the meaning at all, but I think if we say a meeting is held to develop a child's IEP, which is what you're talking about, having the meeting to develop their IEP, and is conducted within 30 days of determination that the child qualifies for special ed. I think that qualifies probably is the term you're the special ed people, then saying needs. I think qualifies is probably what would work better than needs. And then if you could tell me, Ms. Sanchez, on the bottom one, then it goes to the one up at the top. So I was confused if that went along with this one, with the one on the first page, the very bottom one, and then there's the one on the top. So I was really kind of confused if that was just part of that sentence, or was that going to be a separate bullet?
That's actually a separate bullet.
That's a separate bullet.
Okay. And that one, I think, too, if we say, in accordance with the child's IEP, special ed and related services are made available to the child as soon as, and I was looking at as soon as possible, and if you want more flexibility, and that's up to you, they say that common law uses to provide flexibility, that they say as soon as practicable instead of as possible. So it depends if you want to have that flexibility, because it seems like that might have been some of the problem that you were talking about. So that's something that instead of as possible, that practical, that might be better instead. And then just the word state in some of these bullets and some of these paragraphs shouldn't be capitalized.
Okay. And in fact, they are capitalized in the New Mexico Administrative Code and IDEA.
And they're wrong.
We'll be happy to change that. So
they're wrong.
Okay.
Unless you said Washington State, New Mexico State, and it's a proper noun, well, then you would do it. But if you say State of Washington, then you would never capitalize the state. So they need to check their grammar. But I'll just give this to you because I think that's just easier.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other comments?
I guess just my only question is, do you see any barriers in implementing this? Do we have sufficient staff? Are there sufficient programs when kids come in to the district? Is the 30 days
That's what we're doing.
a reasonable, what do we need to do to support staff to actually let this happen?
Okay, Board Member Peterson, I do feel as though we are able to actually comply with the 30-day timeline. I know that, however, we do face some challenges at each of the schools, particularly our head teachers, who are responsible for scheduling IEPs in a timely manner and sending out notifications as required under IDEA to parents. And so between scheduling and actually doing the paperwork, they do face some significant challenges with trying to not only do their head teacher duties, but in some cases also teach, throughout the day. So I do see that as probably our most difficult challenge. Anything there? Do you have anything else?
Just Board Member Peterson and members of the board, one of the things that we are working with the associates is looking at release head teachers. One of the biggest impacts that our elementary head teachers have is if they're in schools that have high transfer rates where this has to get done within a 30-day deadline and they've got a full teaching caseload as well, it does make a difference in how what their work looks like. And so we are having conversations, particularly with some of the zones that might need a little bit extra support.
How many, do we still have teachers having to step in to write IEPs for children that are in classes without a certified teacher?
Yes. And we pay those folks .2s. To do those extra duties.
But it's something we need to keep working with the university on.
Yes, that's agreed.
Other comments? Just a couple comments from me. On the first page, I would spell out IFSP. Some people may not know that that's Individualized Family Service Plan.
Okay.
And then put it in parentheses.
Okay.
I also think that one of the issues with IEPs is it's not the 30 days. It's what is the time frame to get the determination that you actually need an IEP. In other words, there's a screening process, there's something that happens. And so the question is, and that's frequently the case, is somebody says, hey, I think my child needs something. Okay, maybe you've contacted. Now the question is, what is the time frame for that determination? In other words, whether you really do need an IEP or you don't need one or you whatever. So, and I know you guys have been working on those kind of things. I don't know whether you're comfortable in putting some kind of a time frame in there or if there is such a thing. But I do know that I've heard complaints about that. In other words, we contacted the school and nothing's been done. Now, probably not totally true. Probably have done something, you know what I mean? But to a parent, they may not know that. So the question is, what's the process for saying if something happens, somebody contacts you about something, who gets back with the parent and tells them exactly what the time frame is for the determination, and that once that determination is made, yes or no, if it's a yes, then we have 30 days to actually develop the IEP. I think there's a difference of, I think people say 30 days, that means from the time I tell you I think I need an IEP, so I need one by 30 days. And I think there's a difference there. So I think that communication is what may be the issue many times.
Absolutely. You know, there's two pieces. There's the SAT piece, which is where you you suspect that a child might have a disability based on a lack of progress in the general ed curriculum. And it's the school's duty then to complete the SAT referrals and do interventions. And those usually take up to about 6 weeks and document those interventions. They do need to meet with the parent on that so that the parent knows that the school is implementing those interventions, Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions. Once that SAT file is completed and that student still does not continue to make progress with Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions, which often include differentiated instruction and more individualized instruction for a student, then that SAT packet is signed off on by the principal saying that indeed they have made every effort to support the student, and then that SAT packet is turned in to us. And then what we do is we put them on the list for testing. Once the student comes up for testing, we meet with the parent, talk to them about the evaluation process, and then the parent gives us permission to test, and that's when the clock starts ticking, and that's called informed consent. We have 60 days to complete that evaluation then. I think one of the things that is confusing to parents, and we've been working on this because what we're seeing now is many more parents filing based on failure to identify, is that parents, I think, are feeling that if they send a letter to a school and say, I want my child evaluated, that is what's going to drive the evaluation. And in fact, there's nothing in IDEA-B that states that we have to even evaluate a child if a parent requests that. And so many parents are under the impression that they can write a request and that we would test within, the latest issue that we're working on is the parent said, well, I gave permission to have my child tested. How come he wasn't tested within 30 days? And so one of the things that we've realized as an outcome of this, and we're meeting with the associates tomorrow, is to talk about the whole process as a system. The SAT side and the intervention side is a general ed consideration. It's a general ed activity. We don't get involved until that SAT packet has been turned in for an evaluation and is completed by the school. And so what we're looking at is training in child find, our obligation to fulfill child find obligations, and our obligation to, if we suspect that a child has a disability in a school, that it is our child find duty to support that child through SAT interventions, and parents are invited to those meetings so that they understand what the process is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would like to see documented. In other words, I don't know where we have that information actually documented, but I think if it needs to be a procedural directive, it needs to be something that you guys can reference, because I think that's part of our due process to say this really is how it works, this is why we're doing it, this is part of the IDEA process, so they understand what role individual people play. They have, a parent comes, they have no idea who in fact has what role. And so they get confused with that. So we need to have something that's fairly simple for them to understand, like here's step 1, 2, 3. And then you have to have something that's kind of the more detailed procedural directive that tells you all the details about this. So that parents who want to do this can say, I see, this is what the time frame is this is what the steps are, who's involved, and therefore they have a point of contact and they know what kind of step they're on. I think a lot of times parents just don't know what step they're on. Am I on step 3 or is there a step 3? I don't know that. And so I think that would help a lot in terms of our due process, first of all. So when we get lawsuits about somebody saying, well, you didn't do something, say, well, this is our process and this is where we were. And so that'll help a lot, I think, in terms of a lot of these special education issues. And it applies to gifted, it applies to all of our special education areas. And I know you guys are working on it. So whatever you can do to document that and really make it really precise, I think it'll really help a lot in terms of what we're doing. Because if I look at this, I say, well, I don't know, this is kind of a piece of the picture. This isn't the whole thing by any means. And then it just talks about child find, and I'm saying, okay, that's just child find stuff. That's not really everything I'm interested in. And so whatever you guys can do to kind of say, what is it we need to really put down without putting down all of IDEA-B. Please don't repeat IDEA-B. But, something that really summarizes what we do. So I think that would be good if we can do that.
President Piercy and members of the board, we'll be working with Dr. Serna Marmel, and who oversees the SAP process and the associates, and so we're working on that.
Yeah, that's good. And I appreciate what you guys do, because I know it's a very, very complex area. It's difficult, and it is not easy to understand. The regulations are all over the place, and so thank you for what you're doing, and I know you guys can do that well, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
If
All
I
right.
may, I'm sorry.
Yes,
If I
go
may,
ahead.
I just need to add that we will be submitting this information to the New Mexico Public Education Department by April the 9th. So they've given us a deadline of April the 9th. So we will make those revisions.
Yeah,
as
you can do those things, but the other part's a little larger task. Yeah. Good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll go on to board member comments. I'll start down here with board member Miller-Aragon.
Okay. First of all, I know there's still some PE people out there, and I just want to let you know who APS is by the programs that we get behind. And I, for one, am somebody who's behind PE, behind music, behind art. Having been a teacher, I understand that keeps a lot of kids in school. Having asked my students, what's your favorite thing at school? And they would say, PE and recess. And then art, when they had art that year, or if they had music. Those were, I'm not saying never, but a few times I had somebody say science or math, but it wasn't as often as it was PE, recess. So I know how important that is. And I look at it that my children were able to be involved in club sports, but having taught in areas where that wasn't a possibility, the only thing they have is what you all provide them. So I am behind you, and I think that we need to put money behind our children, because I know all of you will be fine. You're going to all be fine. You'll end up having a job. But the people who end up suffering are our kids. And that is not what I will ever be for. I will never be for our children ever not having something that they deserve to have, that their parents may not be able to provide them. So I want to thank all of you for coming. I think that was just wonderful, and I hope that we can figure it out. It seems like we should be able to, by what a lot of you said tonight. So thank you for staying and listening, and know that I am a gigantic supporter of PE, music, art. I know kids have to read and all that stuff, but we have to get them at school, and we want them to also be there. So that's important. I looked at the list of schools, and it was, and thank you for letting us know, I thought that's how they had chosen the schools, that they were Title I. I looked at them, and they were all Title I schools. So it wasn't that it was a hodgepodge. It's like, oh, we'll just give it here and there. So I hope that we can do whatever we can to make sure that we keep, our budget's going to reflect who we are. So I want you to know that's who I am. So there's a couple of things that people said. I think it was Mr. Goudelet that said equity isn't equal. And we know that it isn't. So we need to make sure that we are equitable all the time with our kids. However that takes shape, we need to make sure that we do that. Another thing, I think one of the women, I don't remember if it was Susan, her PE, I think she said she had ADHD or something, and PE turned her into a successful person. Well, why don't we want this for all of our kids? Because I think that's what it does. So, and I think Monica said it's a fun and healthy way to learn. And I know that from my kindergartners, my first graders, my second graders, my third graders. You have to make learning fun. Like I've said, I taught kindergarten most of my career, and they love kindergarten the best because that's how you should be teaching, by doing. And that's what PE teachers do. They are out there doing. So I'm behind you. And today I was at the spring budget workshop, and I think Dr. Bernstein is gone, but she had called this. They were talking about, for those of you who weren't there, they were talking about the teacher pay and the 2.5% raise and the minimum salaries. So what they said you had to do, like Barbara believed, and she was right, is you have to get to the minimum. Everyone has to get to the minimum. And then after you've got to the minimum, because I understand that that bill passed first. And so after you get all of the teachers to their minimum salaries, then the 2.5 is above that. So now we know where we have to go. So good for teachers, I guess. So that's a good thing for them. They also did say, though, when it came to the minimum salaries, the 2.5% average pay, that the school districts could decide how to divvy that out. So you could say we need to keep our level 1 teachers, so we're going to give them more. Like we'll give them their 2% or 2.5%. And maybe special ed, we need to make sure we keep them. So it can be done however the district decides to divvy it out. It doesn't mean that every single teacher has to get the 2.5%. It just has to be an average of 2.5%. So something to say yay for teachers. I did think it was great that little Pout, wasn't that little one, the cutest, most precious little thing dancing. So I love being able to celebrate our cultures. And we know that everyday history can be made with AHA winning that championship, so that's a good thing. Today I was at the spring budget workshop, and I met this legislator there, and he wanted to introduce me to a young lady. So I went over and started talking to her, and he was telling me about this idea that he had never thought of. And so she was explaining it, and he was like, well, I never thought about this. And he's like, and then she's going to be graduating, so I'm going to take all her ideas and try to put it together for next legislative session. And it was about background checks, but she had this phenomenal idea of how to make them wonderful. And so he said, yes, she's going to be graduating in how many days? And she said 25 days or something. So I thought, she's graduating like from college, right? Because of the things that the senator was telling me. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And he's like, yep, she's going to be graduating next year. I was like, congratulations, from what college? And she's like, oh no, I'm graduating from Albuquerque High. So our kids, like when you see that and you hear them, you know that we don't have to worry. And she was telling me, you know what? Our class of 2018, we are the smartest class ever. And our teachers tell us that we are so smart. They don't understand why we don't have to study, because we just get everything. And they don't understand, like we don't have to do our homework because we just get it and we just can pass all of our tests and we're wonderful and we're going to Cornell and Stanford and Harvard, and they've never seen anything like that. So that's what we all have to look forward to, is those kids being able to lead us soon. And I think that we're not going to have to worry. So thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you. Board Member Peterson.
Let's see, just a couple of things. First off, I have to give a shout out to Zone 1 for the Spanish Spelling Bee. Van Buren, Jefferson, and Hayes. That was kind of fun. Let's see, crosswalks. I know it's an issue at not just Cleveland, but other schools around. And it seems like middle schools in particular, because the assumption is they're older students and they can take care of themselves more, but especially Wilson has a real issue with traffic and so it's, it's something that we should maybe try to really sit down with the city about, because it's a joint city, and county probably has some money too, and so we should just work on figuring out how to address some of those needs. PE, there's, we're putting kids in front of screens so much of the time, instead of kids manipulating and building and doing all sorts of things inside, they're sitting in front of computer screens, and then they're not having outside playtime and recess time. And PE isn't playtime. There are two different things, and they need both of them, without a doubt. I am going to put out a little bit of a challenge, and I brought this up yesterday or whenever we did finance. Was that yesterday? A long time ago. if we really cared about kids in this state, the way that we would fund schools is to say every school should have this number of PE teachers so they can have PE every day. We'd have this many music teachers and art teachers. The class size would be this. We need the librarians, counselors, social workers, and that's what it takes. And therefore, this is what we put into the school budget. And the state equalization guarantee would truly be a funding formula and not a distribution formula. But that's not the way schools get funded in this state. The way schools get funded in this state is the legislature decides this is how much money we're willing to spend on education, however it gets justified, and then the state equalization guarantee is a way of dividing it up. And so what comes to districts is based on, enrollment and all of those things, but it's a division formula. It's not a funding formula. And then the governor can decide to veto this or that or whatever. So what we need, because we keep saying, we look at these needs and we say, well, of course, we're committed to that, we need to fund it. We're committed to PE, we need to fund it. There's no doubt. And I'm not sure where, I keep listening, and I know there's issues around supplement and supplant, and I think we're in good shape. I think we sort of came out of the conversation yesterday feeling like that's not an issue. And so I'm not sure exactly where there's money that we're giving back. It's more an issue of, are we putting that money where it was designated to go? And I have the feeling from yesterday's Finance Committee meeting that we're committed to putting that money where it was designated to go. The issue is we need to be a political force, and we need to explain to legislators that there is need beyond what we get funded for. Because the reality is we're still at class size waivers. We're still at giving schools their FTEs for next year, their full-time equivalents that reflect declining enrollment instead of reflecting what we know students really need. And that's based on what we get from the state. So, I feel like for me, I'm committed to making sure we have PE and that we maintain those programs. But we say the same thing to counselors and nurses and librarians. And we need to be a political force together to say picking one program over another is not acceptable. It's not okay. And the only way that we will change that and turn it around is by being the kind of unified political force that can't be ignored. And so every time we have one group of people come to present, the argument for PE is compelling. There is nothing in the argument for PE that doesn't say we have got to do this. We need to make sure we band together so that when we say this is a compelling need for every single one of those programs across the board, we can do it. And the legislators and the governor that hear from us feel our pressure on them to make sure that happens. So don't stop fighting. Just keep going to continue this into election season, next legislative season. We've got to be able to fund the district the way it needs to be funded.
Thank you, Board Member Peterson. Board Member Garcia.
Well, I'm going to try not to repeat what's been said. I do want to thank you all for coming out, the PE folks. I especially appreciated, I live for Jim letter. What an amazing gift. The other comments too, I thought were very important and poignant. I so am pleased that you have been able to organize and work together to come and make your case. But as Board Member Peterson has said, we need to make the case to our legislators. There are a number of folks who don't understand what you do and how important what you do is to the young people and their families. Your stories are inspiring. So much to say, and it does come down to adequate funding. You know, since 2009, when I first joined the board, you know, this was a huge issue, you know, and comparisons were made in terms of studies that had been done about where were we in terms of funding in our state. Well, we got compared to Finland and other countries, Scandinavian countries, where in fact they don't do the standardized testing, and young people are encouraged to play up to around age 7 while they learn to read. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting juxtaposition, if you will, in my mind, to say, what's wrong with this picture? Well, what's wrong is we're not organized, and we have to get to know our neighbors and listen to them and explain to them what the challenges are that we face, that you face. It was very heartening to see the young people, you know, take on Washington in the ways that they did with social media and other things. And I'm hopeful that that will be a trend that continues. You know, I also have had, as in Board Member Mueller-Aragon's concern that she expressed, my grandchildren say, you know, next year when I get music or next year when I get art, you know, that there's something wrong with that in terms of our priorities. And I'm especially glad for the opportunity to hear it from you, but also for us to try to think it through as you explain it to us, the information around obesity, childhood obesity, and the kinds of things that families are facing that are directly related to poverty. And it's almost as if everybody's on chips and Coke and whatever else people drink. Yeah, well, sorry.
Wait a minute, careful. Now you're meddling.
I know, right?
Now you're meddling.
As we eat our pie.
Well, okay. Oops. Yeah, oops and no oops. You know, we're in a tough spot, and I think that you have allies here, but we need to really begin to figure out what it really means as we organize to be a better school district. I think that we have to use the resources that we have well, and I think you have a group of people here, administrators and leadership, who are committed to doing that. But there's still challenges and new frontiers, and one of those, as I tried to say rather clumsily yesterday, is that we don't know how to have these conversations, and we need to get better at it. So one way we can ensure that is that you're at the table. So fight for your place at the table. Mm-hmm. Help us help you, and help us learn from you, and we will move forward. That's it.
Thank you. Board Member Yolanda.
I was thinking about 2005, and I'm looking over at Chris Muir. There was this big old fight at about that time around school health and coordinated school health, and physical education was right at the top of the list on that. And so I think it's just a lesson is, but we can't become complacent with it, because there was a big old fight at that time. There was sort of an influx of additional money and additional energy around we need to have more physical education, because that time public health was, you know, it's alarming. There was all these issues around obesity and the fact that we needed better nutrition, and we needed lots of other things to help our students with healthier weight and just health, general health and well-being. So I'm finding it like hard to, you know, so I guess now I'm starting to get old, you know, and it's like it's all coming around and it's happening, and it's just a testament to the fact that we can't become complacent about it. You know, we have to continue to have the good fight around physical education and the importance of it. Physical education for me, from my perspective, and the education that I've had since I've been here in New Mexico working with the public health department and with school districts, physical ed is part of school health, and it is definitely that important place. And I loved when you described, because it is definitely all those things. It's about nutrition, it's about social emotional wellness, because that is a place where some kids actually become better just by having that social emotional interaction. That is their therapy, and that's the kind of therapy that they need. A lot of students and a lot of young people don't need a counselor. You know, they need that opportunity to be in play and to have that opportunity to problem solve on the playground. So I will continue to put up the good fight on that one, because I definitely have committed myself to school health, and and Dr. Muir, who's here, has taught me a lot about physical education, and so it's not lost education on me, Chris. I can't see her face. She's looking at me going, yeah, right. Okay. But anyway, so just we have to just keep the fight. I agree with that. We can't become complacent on it. I wanted to say, Superintendent Reedy said something really important in her report, and it really resonated with me. And I want to link it also to our wonderful dancers. But one of the things that she mentioned was this whole notion about language and labels matter, and how we tend to ascribe labels to children and to groups of people. Having been a person who came from an at-risk community and was an at-risk youth, or lived with an at-risk family, it's very detrimental. And so I like, taking time to understanding that what we say to and how we ascribe and how we're describing our communities is really important, because it does tend to ride with those children, and it's something that you can easily become and believe yourself. And so it got buried in that report, but it really resonated with me. And the reason that it resonated with me was when that one young man came up and introduced himself, and he said, "I am a Pueblo Indian." And he said it with such, it's going to make me cry. But he said it with such pride, and he is. He should be proud of that. And so I just wanted to say thank you for mentioning that. And then I just want to say I had an opportunity this week to also attend the ribbon cutting ceremony for Pajarito Mesa and their new playground. And so as we're talking about kids having the opportunity to play, but also having places to play that are safe. And so I just wanted to thank the school district too for being part of that effort out at Pajarito Mesa, just to see the families and the children. And the playground is absolutely incredible. And having grown up in this community and going out to the Mesa when it was just, like dunes, and you didn't do anything out there except like shoot rabbits and watch the coyotes. But now it's like it's got this beautiful playground out there, and the nice shelter that we've put up there so that the children have a place to go for before and after school. So it really made a difference. I could see the community members were very proud, and I was very proud to stand in support of APS and the work that they've done. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Board Member Patterson.
Okay, thank you for your report, Superintendent Reedy. I always look forward to hearing all the great things that you're doing in APS. Thank you. And you know what? I really like that Jim poem. I think we should put it up on the website. This makes a good case. I mean, this in and of itself makes a case for physical education. And so I'm not going to repeat what has been said. I think there's enough support here, and enough has been said that you have our full support. You have my support. And one of the things that I've been looking at, and some parents have talked to me about the accident up in the Northeast Heights at Cleveland, is I think what we need to take a look at, besides looking at the crosswalks, we have the educational corridor up in where we have Volcano Vista, Hillerman, and the elementary school. That lends itself to a lot of traffic and a lot of bodies going across a lot of students going back and forth. And I think one of the things that may be helpful, and this was brought to my attention, is that maybe what we need to take a look at is doing an assessment of the drop-offs and the pickups of all of our schools. There's some, it was pointed out to me there were some areas there which could be problematic. And I think maybe this is an opportunity for us as a district to take a look at that. Not only the crosswalks, I know the crosswalks are outside of our purview, but you know, that would entail city, county, and the district. But I think the things that we have control over right now are really taking a look at the drop. And you know, some of those bushes that are really high, that are 7-10 feet high, maybe need to cut down. We need to cut down so that you can see our children walking through by these sidewalks or crossing the street. And so I just wanted to take a look at. I think we need to take a look at that. And Janet, I just want to thank Janet for always making our day. She always seems to make our day. You know, thank you so much for the compliments and for you know, supporting all of us. I appreciate that very much. And then, you know, we have some phenomenal students in our district that participate, that are part of the bilingual program, bilingual SEAL. Just outstanding. The fact that you can get up there and present to a group of evaluators, and I had the real honor of being one of the bilingual portfolio evaluators. Truly an honor, and to listen to what we have out there in terms of our students. You know, you translate, you take this information, and you do it in English and Spanish, and you present before this body of people who are evaluating you. And I think we have some outstanding students, as well as the teachers, the principals, and those organizers. I was able to, I actually went to West Mesa. I was invited to be, you know, it was an honor to be an evaluator there. And it was Juan Aragon who actually organizes all of this, and the teachers there, and the principals that they bring from some of the other schools, and also Ms. Villalobos, your director. She's just phenomenal. So I just want to give a shout out to those folks who put out their heart and do a lot of work. And I'm really proud to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Patterson. Board Member Armijo.
I've been sitting here trying to do the math, and I just thought maybe if I visited 3 PE classes a week, that I could get in a workout. So I tried, but I actually wanted to thank everyone who came out tonight to do public comment. We really appreciate it. You know, we really take to heart everything that you say. And to Janet, who lives in my district but does all of her work in other districts, I just wanted to give you a shout out too. So, you know, thank you for that. And to Coach Jeremy, who's been at Zia now for, I cannot believe you've been there that long, but my son, who's 17 years old, had coached for 5 years, and he is a varsity baseball player for Valley High School. So every single day he is active throughout the summers, and so ever since he was in kindergarten, he's now a junior. So, and they beat Albuquerque High, by the way, last night. So just wanted to point that out. But he's 17 years old now, and he had you for 5 years, and again, he's stayed incredibly active his entire life. So thank you for that. And I'd like to take the rest of my board comment and do a moment of silence for Eliza, who was the young girl who died tragically crossing the street at Cleveland. So I know we've had a lot of discussion about her tonight, but you know, it's impacted all of us. And I got a call from Mayor Keller last week, and you talk about impacting all of us. It absolutely impacted him too, you know, as a father and as someone who's responsible for the children in our city, just like the rest of us. So just please know that he was impacted just as much as the rest of us. So I'd like to take the rest of my board comment to have a moment of silence for Eliza. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Armijo. Just a few quick comments. Barbara Peterson and I and Chief did meet with a person named Lars Council, who is the Department of Homeland Security Assistant Special Agent in charge. And we talked a lot about some of the collaboration potential and issues that we might want to work with in terms of the Homeland Security, but in particular in terms of ICE as well. And you know, I've mentioned before, probably a year now, that when I came back from one of the Council Great City School meetings, that Richard Carranza, who was at that time the superintendent at the Houston Integrated District, had suggested that, you know, what he did is he went and he collaborated with ICE and says, hey, we need to make sure we understand what it is our role is, what it is your role is, and make sure that we collaborate on that so that there aren't any collaboration or any communication concerns. And so I think Mr. Council was very receptive to that, very receptive to making sure that we can get an understanding here. We've got to be careful how we state those things because he has his own upper level supervision kinds of people. But I think we can get a pretty good discussion on that going. And so we suggested that we have another meeting with Superintendent Reedy and with some of us to actually go through that a little bit and make sure that we understand what we can say publicly, but what we can not say perhaps publicly, but make sure there's an understanding about how we work with our students and make sure that our communities understand that. So I like that discussion a lot, and I wanted to communicate that to the boards that that's something we want to work on. And so we will have a discussion on that with our and he said he has control over the whole thing from Socorro North. And I said, well, what happens to Socorro South? And he says, well, there's a Las Cruces person who works on that. And I says, that's okay, but I says, we need to have a full New Mexico understanding of what we're doing here. And so to maybe have even this extended towards the Las Cruces folks and make sure that we have a really good relationship here. Because a lot of the people in the Homeland Security do some great stuff. And there's some bad stuff that's going on that they are actually trying to address. And we need to support them in that. You know, there's a lot of stuff in the drug culture. There's a lot of stuff in other things that are very good things that these people are doing. And so we need to make sure that we understand, you know, that relationship really well, make sure we understand what our policies and our role is in that. And we made it pretty clear what our role was and that we needed to support our students and our parents in terms of what we're doing. And he was supportive of that. And the idea being is if there's any issues, let's go to him and say, hey, we got an issue here and get it taken care of, because there may be some things at lower levels that don't happen exactly the way we want them to happen or what even he wants them to happen. And so we need to make sure that we've got that point of contact. So I think that's one very important thing. We also, a few of us, Barbara, Yolanda, because their districts are impacted, met with the New Mexico PED on our MRI school restructuring plans today. I thought it was a decent discussion. I think we came away with some reasonable actions in terms of rewriting our plans. Good luck, guys, over the next few days. I know there's, these guys have put in, the staff has put in tremendous amount of time and effort on these. And so I appreciate that. And I think we do have maybe a path forward as to what we need to do. And so that challenge is to write it down in a manner that the Public Education Department agrees. So that'll be done in the next few days. I thought the board budget workshop that we had yesterday was very good. I think we got some good understanding, and particularly with regard to our PE program and where that's going. I think we do have some process things that we need to put down in terms of how we allocate extra funding and that for the PE program, and we, I think, put that forth as a challenge for our staff to look at. So I think we've got some path forward in some of that activity. So I look forward to getting that out to you guys and appreciate very much your comments. I think you've heard from the board in terms of those kind of things. In terms of the Cleveland issue, you know, I think very definitely the Cleveland area there is an issue, but to follow up with Board Member Garcia, this is a more systemic issue. This is not just at Cleveland. We can go to McKinley, we can go to Madison, we can go to almost any of our schools, and there's a crosswalk there, guys, that isn't covered. And so the city has to decide how they're going to do this systemically, not just put up a light or something at Cleveland and call it good. That's not what we need to do. We need to analyze where these issues are. I think you mentioned Volcano Vista and those areas. There are a lot of other areas where we have issues. And we've also got to be cognizant of the fact that this is not our property, guys. This is not APS property. And we've got to be careful with who does what and who funds what. We've been working with the MERCOG folks on that. In other words, you know, I think they'd like us to cover all the roads outside of APS and everything else. We cannot do that. We are not funded to do that. So we have to be careful about what our role is, what the city county role is, and still make sure that our kids are safe. So I think it's a bigger discussion, and I think we need to contact Mayor Keller, who's our friend, and also our counselor people, and say, look, we need to have a larger discussion here about this, and this is about our kids. It's about a lot more than even our kids, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of different places probably where we have these kinds of issues in our city. But how are we going to address that? And how do we do that in a manner that, because we're looking at it in a volume sense, we can make it a lot cheaper per area that we need to cover? So I think that's an important thing, an important discussion to have. What the people here in the PE didn't tell you was I was the one who wrote that letter about living in a gym. They didn't say that.
12 years ago, yeah.
Just let you know, I was that guy. My dad was a music director at in a small town, Rifle, Colorado. I don't remember a day that I didn't want him opening the gym for me to go shoot baskets. And I remember thinking that junior high gym was so big. It was so wonderful, you know. And then when I could get him to open the high school gym, it was like, oh my God, this is a huge place, you know. And then I go back later on and I find out that junior high gym was a tiny little place. And even the high school gym was a little place, you know. But I wanted him to open that gym every day. So, between the music and the gym, I basically lived there. Now, I did okay academically. That was fine, you know. That was an added benefit. But the gym was the place, and the music was the place. So what I call these, and I think what we need to think about this, is that these are what I call applied academics. We learn academics all the time through these applications. I don't care whether it's music or whether it's PE, whether it's after-school sports or whether it's intramurals or whether it's art. These are applied academics. These are where kids learn about experiential learning things. This is how you attribute what I call the abstract academics to the real world. And we have to start thinking more that way, you know. People in shop, people in home ec, people who are doing the culinary arts. If you don't think that's science at work, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. I've listened to my kindergarten teachers in music who are teaching about locations of countries, the kind of style of cultural music that is being played in those countries, the dances that are being used. They are exercising their kids in those things. They are having them do the kinds of dances that are like that. That's what you're doing in the physical education program a lot. It is not just about running around the track and getting a little bit of exercise. It's much, much more than that. It's what I call applied academics. And so these are the things that are important to the kids because they are learning about the real world. They're learning about something they like to do. You know, if I've often said, if you go look at recess and you watch kids out there, it is a creative, innovative, self-organizing group of people out there. They will reorganize and group and play games in 20 minutes. They will do that about 4 different times if you just watch them and let them do it. Those are the organizational and team building skills that we keep telling people are important in leadership. Why not emphasize those kinds of things as part of our normal academic thing? We talked to the PED then about our genius hour at our 3 MRI schools. And all they could say was, well, that wasn't actually educational, that wasn't actually learning, that wasn't teaching. It is teaching, guys. It is educational. It is academic learning. It is applied academics. And so I want to emphasize all the time that what we're trying to do here, and I think the superintendent is doing this very strongly in terms of our academic master plan and so forth, is we are working on what we mean by applied academics in the whole context of the child. And what we mean by the child actually being an important part in addressing some of these root cause things, see. It's calling kind of what I call an extent of condition kind of thing. The Cleveland Mid-School thing is we got to not just solve that issue. We've got to look at the extent of condition in terms of all the possibilities here, because there's just going to be another crosswalk that some kid gets killed in. You see? So you solve the Cleveland problem after the fact, and then you go and somebody else gets killed and you solve them after the fact. And then we keep doing this after the fact instead of looking at the preventive aspects. Those are very important aspects. So thank you very much for you people that come. And again, I was the kid who wrote that letter. So I just want to let you know that.
I have to say, I think you sell yourself short for what happened in that meeting this morning. And I kind of want to say, Dave uses collaborate because he likes working together and he likes listening to people. But I was so proud to sit at that table and hear Dave say point blank, our role is to make sure that every student that walks through the doors of our schools is safe, that they need to be safe from the time they leave their house to the time they come into the school, that the climate of fear that our families are feeling around immigration is real and that it is not okay. And so when Dave says collaborate, I feel compelled to clarify that it's really a matter of clarification. What really is ICE's position? What really and truly can we say to our families that we really and truly can implement? And where is that line? And it's really an issue of clarifying and communicating. And I have never been more proud of sitting at a table to hear someone talk about our responsibility as a district to the students that come to us. And so thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Barbara. It's a great compliment. And I want us to say to my staff, I'm really proud of you guys. I'm proud of what you've done for our MRI schools, and we're going to make it work. We're going to make it work, no matter how we have to do it, but we're going to make it work. So thank you. Keep working on it, and we're going to make it work. So this board is behind you. I can guarantee you that. Okay. With that, we'll announce the next Board of Education meeting will be Wednesday, April 18th, 5 p.m. Actually, we're probably going to have one on the 11th, based on the discussion today. And the next Board of Education will be 23rd. Special one will be April 23rd. And we may have a special one on the 11th. So just alert the board members. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, guys.
I was going to say, I hope